Hi, everybody, and welcome back to We Are All Fine. I'm Heidi Lester, your host. I'm a counsellor and a psychotherapist, and if you're joining me for the first time today, you are so welcome. I've spent over 25 years in the therapy room, so I've sat with thousands of stories like yours of pain, resilience, and that incredible capacity to grow in ways that we never thought possible. So today we're going to be talking about something that quietly shapes almost everything about our adult lives, yet many of us still struggle to understand it. We're talking about ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. But more importantly, we're going to be talking about how we start to heal from them. Now, I'll be clear from the off, this isn't about pointing fingers and blame at the past. It's about understanding it, because here's the truth. When you understand your patterns, you gain choice, and choice is exactly where healing begins. So make yourselves comfortable. We are going to start to understand ACEs in human terms.
Welcome to We Are All Fine with Heidi Lester, counsellor and psychotherapist with over 25 years of experience. Together you will explore mental health, emotional awareness and growth with kindness, clarity and practical guidance.
When we hear the term ACE, it can feel a bit clinical, a bit like a checklist. But behind the acronym are very real, very human experiences. So maybe for you, it was about emotional neglect, an absent parent. Maybe it was a divorce that left things fractured or unresolved. Or maybe addiction, mental illness, or chronic instability were in the background of your household. These things, they don't just happen and disappear. They shape your nervous system while it's still under construction. Because you see, a child's brain is wired for one thing, and that's survival. And it learns exactly what it needs to do to stay safe, to stay connected, or sometimes to stay invisible. So if you grew up in unpredictability, you probably became hyper aware of everybody's moods. Or if you grew up emotionally alone, you probably learned how not to need anybody. And if conflict felt dangerous, you likely learned to avoid this at all costs as you grew up. Now, I want you to hear this from me. These are not personality flaws. You've done nothing wrong. They're what we call in therapy adaptations. But that map that would have helped you survive at 8 years old might not be the one you need right now at 28, 38, or 48. And that is where our work begins. I'll share a personal reflection, not just as a professional, but as somebody who has walked the path and navigated her own ACEs. And the one I'll bring to this podcast is about my dad, because he left when I was 3, so very much absent. Physical absence, most definitely. But what has hurt the most is his emotional absence in my life as well. Now, as a child, I didn't just sit there and analyse my attachment style when there was this huge, big dad-shaped hole. I couldn't have done that. So what I did was I learned to adapt. And for me, that meant becoming independent very early on. I learned not to expect much from people, and I learned to manage my own world. There was nobody there that I could trust to reach out to. So on the outside, I think I look capable, responsible and strong, because for many years, and they still do, people called me resilient. But underneath that strength, my nervous system didn't trust safety or stability because it had never met it. So I lived waiting for people to go, people to reject me, and I felt a deep physical discomfort with the idea of needing help. I found that really vulnerable. It did take a lot of my own therapeutic work to realize that this wasn't a weakness in me. It was the brain, it was my brain and how it was wired. And my system, it learned that relying on people led to disappointment. So it chose self-reliance to stay safe. Healing for me wasn't about changing history. That's impossible. It was about gently teaching my nervous system that not everybody will go. And that support is allowed to exist without me feeling vulnerable, and I can ask for it. It wasn't a dramatic explosion. It didn't happen overnight. It was steady and quiet, and I'm still a work in progress, and I'm still learning how I can heal myself from within. But what I'm doing now that I never used to do was give myself some grace and compassion. That was then. So let me look about how it might show up now for you as well as for me. Because most of the time we don't connect our current struggles to those early years, do we? We just think, why do I always shut down? Why am I constantly on edge? Or why can't I trust people? Listen to those really horrible judgmental questions. It's when we slow things down, often in therapy, can we start to see our own thread. Everything links. So a child who felt unseen will often grow into an adult who overperforms to feel valued, or an adult who withdraws to avoid that horrible sting of rejection. Maybe that sounds familiar. So if you struggle with boundaries or guilt or a relentless inner critic, please know that none of this is just random. None of this has just found itself into your head. Your nervous system has remembered what your conscious mind has tried to forget. And here's the most important part. When your responses finally start to make sense and you can link the past to the present, the shame starts to soften. So how do we rewrite the story? Rewriting your story doesn't mean pretending that everything was and now is fine. What it means is this: shifting the question from what is wrong with me to what happened to me, and then eventually to how can I care for myself differently now. In practical terms, this is going to start small. It's noticing the tension in your shoulders maybe and actually pausing. Or it's realizing that your anger might actually be hurt and pain in disguise. And it's saying no even when your heart is racing out of your chest. I will always encourage my clients, as I'm encouraging you now, to start with that body awareness. Your nervous system speaks long before your thoughts do, and a clenched jaw or a fluttering signal is always live data. It's a signal. So instead of ignoring it, try saying to yourself something like, okay, I notice I'm being activated. I don't feel quite safe. It's in that moment of awareness that is where regulation starts. Awareness, it creates space, and space creates the choice. So let's take a moment to reflect before we wrap this up. I'm going to invite you to consider something quietly. What did you have to become in order to survive your childhood? And were you the strong one, the invisible one, the caretaker, the protector? And the big question, just think on this, are those roles still serving you now? There is no blame here, only compassion. You did what you had to do to get here today. But as an adult, you have way more choices than you did back then. Thank you for spending this time with me today. And remember, healing doesn't erase your past. It just teaches your nervous system that you are safe now, that you are capable, and that you are deserving of care. And as we've talked about today, these early experiences, they shape how we respond to everything, even the silence. And for many of us, that will show up as overthinking. Replaying conversations, scanning for the what went wrong, I know is exhausting. So next week, we're going to talk about how to gently detach from that spiral of overthinking, because you can. So until then, be gentle with yourself. Awareness is the work. You can navigate your life away from those aces. We are all flawed, insecure, nervous, and emotional. But remember, be yourself. You are special and you are no one else. Take care of yourself. Until now, have a great week. Finally, this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. It isn't a substitution for professional advice, personal diagnosis, or therapy. Listening doesn't create a counselling relationship, and if you've any concerns about your mental health, please do reach out to a qualified mental health professional for personalised professional support.